Simeon Papalias, JG Francoeur, welcome to Facebook Live and YouTube Live, by the way. We're live all over the place. We're talking real estate, as we often do, but we're getting into a little bit of the details of what's happening in Ontario, and then the R4 conference and why people need to come to the R4 conference, but also understanding what is happening in the market to see that there's actually some opportunity in spite of what we're reading in the newspapers and the headlines on the clickbait that the world's coming to an end and the sky is falling. JG, anything you want to add to that?
I want to jump right in right away, Patrick, and just straight off the hop here, I want to talk about the fact that for once, I feel like Simeon and I, both Ontario investors, both heavily invested in Ontario, finally got a jump on Mr. Alberta here. Simeon, for a long time now, I've been hearing about Patrick and Alberta and, all of the amazingness of Alberta. Tell us about Ontario, why it's an amazing market. And it's like no other market in Canada, in this great country. I feel like finally I have a bit of an edge, Mr. Alberta.
Well, you do. You have a great edge because you got Simeon on your side, living in the heart of what's going on. He's
you're going to get tag teamed right now. You're going to get tag teamed.
So listen, we're talking about the R4 conference, ours being, real estate rates, recession, and regions. And of course, we look at real estate in a regional market. We see opportunities ahead. Now, that's not to say that everybody should be going out and buying blindly. That's not the point of what we're talking about here today, is that investors who are strategic, who are thoughtful, can see and find opportunities. And, Simeon, one of the things that there's a lot of headlines around is the pre-construction market. All these units, they're not going to sell and they're going to fall off the face of the earth because you've got a bunch of speculators that aren't going to be able to close on deals. So there's a lot of controversy around the whole pre-construction market. But when it comes to pre-construction, you really are in the heart of it. You're literally tapped into what's happening in a very even micro regional way. So why don't you give us a little bit of update on what you see in the pre-construction market and where you see the opportunities that investors might want to consider?
Yeah, so I think we need to start unpacking that quickly. And again, speaking to the R4 conference, that's the whole point of the R4 conference, is to take an entire day and really dive deep into different segments, different asset classes, different issues that face the Canadian investor community regionally. And I think what's extremely important to understand, pre-construction, we talk about it like it's an alien thing. Yeah. It's housing tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Pre-construction is housing tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, next year, 3 years, 5 years down the line. As investors, we have the unique ability to shape our country, to shape our cities, to shape our neighborhoods. Look at it at any level, micro, mid, and macro. It is us, the housing providers, who determine what this country looks like. Right now, what we know is a fact, and Alberta right now economically is entering a big R word, but everyone else is soon to follow. So all joking aside, Ontario may be in a better fortune today, but there's hundreds of thousands of people who are freaking out right now because of the variable rate doing what it's done, because of groceries. The reports are being published today. This inflationary period has people shook, as it should. But there is opportunity. So as real estate investors, the reason we're on this call, the reason you should be watching this very Facebook and YouTube Live is to understand that not everyone is in the same bag. People who are well prepared, people who are savvy, people who do not follow like sheep and actually do their due diligence have come on top of these very circumstances. And if you are one of those people, there is further opportunity. As a matter of fact, truckloads of opportunity to leverage right now to exponentially grow your portfolio as the country navigates this crisis and goes into the next phase of whatever that will look like. But there is never a time in an upward trajectory market or in a downturn market that we're experiencing right now that there is not miles and truckloads of opportunity and roads that are safe and easy to navigate. Should you have the right knowledge, should you have the nerve and risk tolerance to take certain actions. in order to win. So,
and I think Simeon, we have to shine a light on this. This isn't, we're not suggesting for a minute that it's just go in and start buying it. This is really a thoughtful process that we have to go through, and surrounding yourself with the right people, the right team, understanding strategies. JG, you and I see it all the time where I joke about these clickbait headlines about the sky is falling and the world's coming to an end and real estate is going to crash and burn forever. And these headlines are really playing well into the real estate market on the end user side, the retail side, the person that wants to buy, or the family that wants to buy their first property. So we have to really differentiate between what they're talking about in those headlines versus what we're talking about from an investor focused group of individuals who are coming together to talk about real estate and look at the opportunities. What's your thoughts when you look at because as you said, you're busy in Ontario, you've got some stuff going on in Alberta. What do you see as an investor?
Well, I think what's interesting here, Patrick, and I think you said, Simeon said something very fascinating. He talked about this inflationary period, and he described this period as inflationary. But the point is it's a period, it's a moment in time. And as an investor, you're not investing for this moment in time. You're investing for the future. And there are tactics where in this moment in time, those tactics work better than any other tactic. And I think, Simeon, you're going to be on a panel, if I remember right, at the R4 conference, talking about like RTO, talking about VTB, talking about different tactics that right now are optimal and work really, really well. The average investor doesn't know that. The average speculator, the average guesser, the average person who's trying to roll the dice on real estate, they don't know that stuff. But if they come to an event like R4, Simeon, that can be the difference, right, between them using that tactic or not. And I think you'd agree there's a lot of those opportunities out there right now.
A tremendous amount. And that's the thing. Real estate doesn't have to be one way. People think, if I go get 80% loan to value financing, the numbers don't work. Okay, well, you're out and you're not an investor. An investor is going to seek ways to make a deal work for them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about a VTB, if somebody thinks we're speaking a foreign language, it's a vendor take back. It's a circumstance where you can put 5% down, get 85 or 95% financing from the seller should they have a paid off home. Should the numbers make sense because you're going to give them 3%. Instead of them paying capital gains on a tremendous amount, they're going to pay on nothing. This can work advantageous for the seller. But all these things, like if you are not understanding the little peppering that I'm doing on a deal structure, that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's where you need to get educated.
Which exactly, Simeon and Patrick, we talk about that massive intergenerational wealth transfer, which, by the way, is fueling some of this incredible opportunity for VTB, because Simeon just kind of outed the cat right there. The cat's out of the bag, whereas people have these massive tax bills that they don't necessarily want to pay today. And we're probably getting way too much in the weeds here, Patrick, but you wanted to, you asked the question of where are the opportunities. And this is where the people in the trenches that are doing deals day in and day out, this is just another market. It's a different market. It presents new opportunities. And I couldn't do business the way I did business 15, 18 months ago. But my gosh, the opportunities are better today than they were 18 months ago, even though the average person doesn't think so.
Well, I think there's something I want to add here that's really important, and this is what the R4 conference is about. And I know, Simeon, you've been doing a bunch of research in Ontario, as have I. I look at it kind of a national picture because of, the community is national in scope. But, ultimately, we're not talking about guessing here. We're not talking about speculating. We're making decisions based on data. And there's a lot of nuances. The average less sophisticated investors, only looking at interest rates or only looking at one aspect of an overarching kind of picture when we're looking at data. I mean, we're looking at immigration, in-migration, interprovincial migration. We're looking at jobs and construction and what's happening with GDP growth. I mean, there's so many parts to this puzzle to bring together. But when you start to understand that, it isn't really that complicated. Now, we do it a lot, so for us, it just makes sense. There's a pragmatic approach to it. And the point here, Simeon and JG, and Simeon, I know you see it all the time, is the emotionality of investors either puts them into the FOMO, that hype that we've been going through over the past 18 months or 2 years, And now the fear where it's keeping everybody on the sidelines. But those are emotional driven decisions. The decision to get in, the decision to get out, or the decision to not even start is driven by emotion as opposed to looking at the data and then making great decisions based on the data.
So much so, not only do I agree with that, and we are seeing investor sentiment change a little bit. The shock and awe has kind of worn off, which is great to see. We are starting to see that subtle activity. We had a couple of events in person, both sold out, where investors were coming for education. R4 will be no different. And what I want to tell people is not only there is savviness that goes into this, there's a tremendous amount of hard work from the broker business development side, which is what I do for a living. So the deals that we structure, so out of, let's say, 200 ongoing projects happening in an 80-mile radius. So from, let's call it the CN Tower, the epicenter. If you go out 80 miles each way in a radius, to the south is the water. That eliminates half the real estate. To the other half, you're talking about the Golden Horseshoe, which is now insane because the population growth is intense. And housing, if we were to go over the market stats, although prices may have flatlined for condominiums and have been reduced for freeholds in the Golden Horseshoe because of the environment, there is still a historic low of listings. People do not need to sell. Canadians are conservative overall, period. I don't care where they came from. They moved here, they took big chances, and they're not willing to lose on to what they've gained. Canadians are more hardcore than people think. They have outperformed the rhetoric in the headlines every single year since I have been here in 2000. And that's the 08 crisis, the mid 15s, into 17s pinnacle and action by the government, into the pandemic, and into right now. I have gone out, and the reason I can do deals at scale is because I have relationships at scale. So when I go to Green Park, to Tribute Homes, to Tridel, to Marlin Spring, to these developers that have literally built the country over the last 20, 30 years, these are the people who do these mega projects and these master plan communities. And I say, guys, the market has changed. We need to change deal structure if you want to continue to entice the investor community. And they ask, what do you mean by that? Because they have a fixed set of rules. Fixed set of rules includes their financing, their construction loans, their this, that, and the other. And I said, well, if I need to change, means you need to change, meaning your finance needs to change. You need to take the data from the street, because it all starts when you reverse engineer something. You need to start where the actual investor is. That's where the dollars come in. Yeah. All these hundreds of millions that these big developers talk about, they come from your pocket. They come from my pocket.
Simeon, let me ask you, because that's actually you're going right where I wanted to ask, because you have a unique perspective. You sit in this incredible office, not only where you are today, but this office where you get to deal with all these great developers. What are you seeing feet on the street from a developer perspective? And I know you're bringing certain deals to the R4 conference in the marketplace of opportunity, very, very rare opportunity. But tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I basically fix the market. Meaning that for our investors, I'm going to negotiate with those who are willing to listen and respect what the investor community needs. So you can't put a square peg in a round hole. And that's where investors fail, and they make mistakes, and they purchase things or don't purchase at all, which is even worse. So if you have the capital sitting with you and you don't put it to work, you're getting slaughtered right now because of the inflationary period. If you put it in the wrong investment, you're going to get beat up a different way. So if there was a way to fix the market, that's what we have done. I have taken meetings for the last 6 months. I have been able to generate opportunities and have people leverage those opportunities. And right now we have some of the best opportunities, once again, fully engineered for investors, meaning the deposit structures are in line with investor wins. I have deals where you're going to put down, let's call it 10% over 3 years. 10% of an average purchase price of, let's call it 700,000, just for fun. We're talking about 70 grand spread across 3 years. That's 70 grand over 3 years. What needs to happen in the marketplace for you to win is so marginal, where it's not only possible, it's actually, I don't want to use silly words. It is so unlikely for the market not to move in a specific way over 3 years because of the force majeure. The force majeure is that costs in construction are impossible to go down. There is a labor shortage in this country across the entire country, which is a crisis. Not a shortage, a crisis. All the Italians, all the Portuguese, all the Greeks that were laying brick over the last 30, 40 years are retiring. And unfortunately, their kids did not take on daddy's boots. Daddy sent them to university. They became doctors and lawyers and accountants and professionals. So we have a big problem in this country.
Well, what I like about, sorry to interrupt, Simeon, but I think, what we see is happening is that we have a very strong kind of model and thought process about why we look into the future of real estate and continue to see the opportunities. What I want to bring back to is that, for those of you who are coming to the R4, I mean, you can see Simeon's passion. JG and I, of course, we're so passionate about the opportunities that are presenting themselves. Simeon, what I love about what you do and the work that you do and the opportunities that you bring forward is I kind of look at it like you're the pointy end of the spear when it comes to seeing and bringing opportunities to the community. Because we've often said this, in the pre-construction world, and when you're going to the sales office and a grand opening, you're way, way too late. I mean, we're talking about setting people who are coming to the R4 conference up with an opportunity to look at things, to hear you speak, but to really look at deals before, it's kind of front of the line. It's you're at the front of the line, in front of the red rope, ready to go through, and you're opening those doors of opportunity because of who you are in the industry.
Meaning that not a single other person on this beautiful earth has that deal because they didn't ask for the deal.
You're right.
So
that's what's so awesome. So we do have to wind this down, because otherwise the three of us will go on all day. I know we will. Here's the message, folks. Register for R4. You're going to see guys like Simeon. You're going to see that marketplace of opportunities, because what I hear all the time, JG, you and I both hear every day, I can't find cash flow. I can't find deals. The interest rates are too high, so nothing works. That's just a story you're telling yourself, because on the other side of it, we're seeing it every day where there are opportunities. So please register for R4. Get out there. It's like dirt cheap. It's really an inexpensive time. And listen, your ROI on the time you spend at R4 is going to just knock your socks off. We've got mayors. We've got economic development officers. We're going to look right across the country. Simeon, you're going to be there, of course, bringing that deal, bringing that marketplace of opportunity, as well as sitting on the panels. JG, you and I are going to host that and drive the bus for the weekend. We're going to have a ton of fun, and you are going to learn a lot. So Simeon, JG, thanks for joining me, guys.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I really look forward into going into all these details. The details that we go off on are the actual proof as to why we make the statements that we make. We don't just blow hot air anywhere. So you're going to understand the justification of the statements that we make, and I hope to see every single one of you there. I couldn't be more excited for an event than this Saturday.
Fantastic. JG, last words from you?
No, listen, I mean, this is the moment. I always, and I've been saying this for some time, but this is, in our lifetime as investors, we get very few moments in time that will mark the rest of our lives. And we're living through that moment right now. And anybody who doesn't get off their behind and do something about it will sit back in 5, 10, 15 years and say, I wish I would have. Don't be that person. Don't say, I wish I would have. Get your butt to the R4 conference. Come learn, and let's make things happen together.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Our pleasure.